welcome to the Crafty virtual conference. Today's talk is one with a focus on hydrodistillation, but that is not the only thing that Ulrich is doing. So we will be looking at other aspects as well. So I will quickly pass you over to Ulrich himself of Woodlab Distillery to introduce a little bit about himself and what he's doing, and then we should go into things in a bit more detail.
Hi, my name's Ulrich Dyer, and I'm the founder of Woodlab Distillery, and we produce a range of spirits called Symphonia. They're called Symphonia because I distill each of the botanicals individually and then compose them into my individual Symphonias. So that's the brand. We've been going about 3 years now, and we're based here in Northern Ireland. So we have two unique selling points. One is what we make it from. So here where we're based is called the Orchard of Ireland. So we are surrounded by apple orchards, which accounts for 2 of our products being apples. The other unique selling point is the way that I make the spirits, and that's something that we'll be talking about today.
Fantastic, thank you so much. So yes, it's quite a scientific process. I know there is in much distillation, but particularly in your case. And your background and what you did in your previous career had a kind of factor in there. And I'm just curious a little bit about that and how it developed the processes that you're using now.
Yeah. So I'm a chemist by training. I was inspired by a fantastic chemistry teacher at school, and this was a long time ago now, before health and safety had gone mad, and was able to do experiments on the bench, set fire to things and blow things up. And I was very inspired by chemistry, and I followed that as a career into the pharmaceutical industry. And to get a job in the pharmaceutical industry doing that, you need to know a lot of chemistry. So I did a degree in chemistry, a PhD in chemistry, and then went to Harvard University to do a postdoc in chemistry with some of the very best chemists in the world. And then I was headhunted back to the UK to work for a large pharmaceutical company called GSK, and working for them and other pharmaceutical companies throughout my career. I spent 30 years in the industry using my chemistry, and that in particular my focus was in finding the very best way to scale up and make pharmaceuticals. So as you know, they're really quite complex molecules, but we had to make them very cost effectively using the least amount of resources, money, and energy and impact on the environment. So we would develop these processes to make the pharmaceuticals. So that is really my background, 30 years of chemistry.
And it goes to show, I think, with what you're doing now, certainly. So can you tell us a little bit about the science of hydrodistillation, how it works? I know when we spoke before, you know, there's certain sort of bits, it's kind of good to have that understanding to know what's going on when we talk about the process. So if you could just tell us a little bit about how hydrodistillation works sort of on a scientific level, that would be really helpful. Obviously easy to digest for people that might not have so much information to start with.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So we use the equipment that's behind us here, which is a microwave powered hydrodistillation still. Now, hydrodistillation has been around since the mists of time, same if not longer than alcohol distillation, and it's been used to isolate essential oils from plant materials, and that process is basically what you're doing. So hydrodistillation is also known as steam distillation. What it involves is putting the plant material with water or put steam in to generate some heat, to heat it up and collect what comes out, just as you would do normally with a traditional distillation. And what you would collect there would be both water and the essential oils from the plant that you're trying to extract the essential oils from. Now that technique, as I say, is thousands of years old, but what has happened very recently is that we have identified that there's a much more efficient way of extracting the essential oils, still using hydrodistillation, but using microwaves to actually extract the essential oils from that. And how it works. So any plant. So here's a plant, and inside that plant are cells containing water, because it's quite naturally a living plant, but also the essential oils of, in this case, rosemary. And what they discovered, just really by experimentation, is what would happen if we were to microwave such a plant. So quite simply put that even in a domestic microwave. And microwave, you find microwaves in every single kitchen, including professional kitchens in the world. Why? Because they are absolutely fantastic at heating up water molecules, because microwaves cause water molecules to resonate, so to move up and down, sideways and sideways, and that generates heat. So, and what microwaves are good at is they just target the water molecules. So if we take this, for example, and microwave it, the microwave doesn't see the glass, it doesn't see the plastic, it only sees something that contains water. So incredibly efficient at targeting water. And that we've exploited with our chicken tikka curries that we take out of the freezer and put in our microwaves. The microwaves target the water molecules, albeit frozen, keep heating them, they get hotter and hotter and turn into steam. And that is a very, very efficient way of heating up anything that contains water. So some clever chemists decided what's going to happen if we put that in a microwave and microwave. And what happens is the microwaves heat up the water so much that they burst out of the cells, bringing with it all the essential oils of that particular botanical. That gets hotter and hotter, turns into steam, and then the steam rises, just as like in any sort of distillation process. It rises, it brings with it all those beautiful essential oils with it, and then you condense that vapor of both steam and essential oils back to a liquid. That liquid is in two parts. It's water, but it's also essential oil. So oil floats on the surface of the water, and you can separate off that oil. That is the principle of hydrodistillation, and in particular microwave assisted hydrodistillation, which is the new technique that's really making such an impact in the industry.
Yeah, because it's I'm going to deviate here slightly. It's hugely efficient, isn't it? In comparison to traditional pot still distillation. We'll go into that in a little more detail shortly. I think what would be good for the viewers is if we then looked at the next part of the process quickly, so they could see what happens then. What's the next step in turning that into your gin and your rum. So maybe the vacuum distilling.
So I've got an example. If you look here, this is what happens if you zap juniper berries, 20 minutes, a kilo of juniper berries, and sitting on the surface of that, you will see that oil. That oil gets separated off. Yeah. And then we would then, that oil contains everything, the entire almost catalogue of juniper. So there's both the beautiful things that we want to put into our gin, but there's also some nasty tasting things that we don't want to put into our gin.
Yeah.
So what we would do with that would be to do an alcohol distillation. For us, we use a rotary evaporator, and we would do it, typically we would do it under vacuum, so that we don't use a lot of energy, so we can boil alcohol and alcohol water mixtures at room temperature. Yes. Which gives us an advantage of being able to preserve flavours that would otherwise be lost under traditional distillation, because the heat would destroy some beautiful of the delicate flavours that are present in that. But also because we are distilling at room temperature, it uses a lot less energy than a traditional distillation, because you're not having to heat up it to 80 to 100 degrees. Yeah,
brilliant. That makes so much sense. And like you say, with the heat in a normal traditional distillation, it can impair the compounds and change the flavours. A good example is when we say, you know, orange turns to marmalade, sort of flavours in the stills. So if you've gone to the effort of getting this quite clean flavour from the microwave distillation, you keep that. That's a brilliant way to do it. And then from that point, you've got your notes for your symphony, and you compose them all together.
Yeah. So our because it's such a concentrated process. So the microwave distillation, you're producing, as I say, an essential oil. If you put in something like 1 kilo of juniper berries, you'll be getting out something between 5 and 10 millilitres of essential oil of juniper. But that is enough for 1,000 litres of gin, you know, and that super concentrate is the secret, or not so much a secret, the unique selling point of the approach that we use, because at the end of the day, you know, gin is a flavoured alcohol. That flavouring comes from the essential oils of plant materials, botanicals as we call them. And that extraction, traditionally we would use alcohol to extract out those essential oils, those beautiful flavours. In this case, we're bringing modern day techniques, and we're using microwave assisted hydrodistillation to extract out those essential oils. But we still need a traditional ethanol distillation, because we still need to take cuts of our botanicals, because there are certain notes that you don't want in your gin. Some you want, some you don't want. You have to separate those out.
Fantastic, thank you. I was hoping you were going to start bringing out some of your figures, because when we spoke before, it really did knock my socks off. It's quite impressive what you're doing. What would you say, you know, looking at the benefits? I know the environmental impact is a big one for you. Like cost-wise, are there any benefits that you can give us examples of to using this process?
Yeah, because we are only heating up the minimum amount of alcohol and using the minimum amount of energy because of the vacuum distillation, the cold distillation. We're only using 2% of the energy of a traditional distillation, because we would then add those concentrates to a solution of alcohol and water at room temperature. So you haven't had to heat up your entire batch. Say if your batch was 200, 400 litres of alcohol and water, to heat that up to extract out your essential oils in a traditional way, you would need to heat it up for all day to extract that out. We are doing a distillation 20 minutes to extract out the essential oils of juniper, and using something which has a physical footprint that you can literally stick on a bench but will produce up to 1,000 litres of gin a day. You know, so there's not just energy savings, but physical footprint savings as well.
Yeah, I should imagine that that stretches a bit further, because you're essentially building up a bank of these different flavoured distillates.
Yes.
But on each one on quite a small scale, you can tweak them when they go through the vacuum still to make sure you get just that right profile. And you can probably have several profiles of different botanicals, and then blending them to come up with new recipes. You can do it on such a small scale, it doesn't even really require much further distillation to get that idea before you decide to produce it properly.
That's exactly right. So the experimentation part is great, because, you know, unlike a traditional distillation, say if you do a distillation and you realize you wanted some particular flavor element in it, say you wanted to increase the amount of lemon, you would have to do that redistillation. You would have to do another distillation with the increased lemon in the still. With this one, you are literally doing a scientific experiment where you are adding additional flavors to develop the recipe in a very controlled, precise manner, and that's, you know, a real advantage, and opens itself to, you know, lots of different recipe variations.
Yeah, fantastic. It's so interesting. And also we did want to touch on the gas chromatography side, because that really, again, has a huge environmental impact, because you're looking at finding compounds in local botanicals that essentially do the same job as ones that are quite exotic that you have to get shipped in. So from using that process, again, you're having such an environmental impact with what you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah. As you know, Bernadette, I'm a massive chemistry geek. So the first thing I did when I was developing my recipes and ideas for doing that is that I picked botanicals that grew all around where I was, from the garden, from the hedgerows, around and about, within about 3 or 4 miles of the distillery. And then, as you would do if you're a massive chemistry geek like myself, I carried out chemical analysis of all of those. So we basically did GC analysis, where we would then individually analyze each of the peaks that we got from the chromatogram. We would analyze those via mass spectrometry. And mass spectrometry is a technique, it's a bit like molecular facial recognition. So it, by looking at the fragmentation patterns of in a mass spec, it puts it all together and suggests what particular molecules that you've got. So what I got out of that analysis was quantities of particular molecules that were present in botanicals, and also the structure of those molecules. I then compared that with exotic ingredients, and a great example is cubeb peppers, for example, a wonderful botanical that comes from Indonesia that you'll find in a number of gins. When I was carrying out the chemical analysis, I put each of them side by side with cubeb peppers, and what we discovered was that dandelion flowers, petals, contain exactly the same molecules as cubeb peppers. And we have literally millions of dandelions growing around us here in Northern Ireland. Another example is the botanical that we use in our apple rum, which has nutmeg and clove flavors in it. Those we identified from a botanical that grows in my garden, and it's. I looked at it and said, "Hang on a minute, those molecules, that is what you would find in nutmeg. That is what you would find in cloves." It was amazing, and we were able to separate those out via some careful distillation, and that is now the flavouring that's in the that complements the apple in the apple rum. So we don't have to go to Indonesia for our nutmeg and our cloves. We can pick it literally out of the garden. So fantastic saving of food miles there, just by applying the principles of molecular analysis and using, 21st century analytical techniques.
That's wonderful. And if I remember rightly, the juniper that you use in the gin, this is not so much about environmental impact, but it's kind of about the design of the liquid. Because am I right in thinking you actually found a local juniper, but then compared it so you knew where to get a juniper that was very similar from? So although you can't get a lot of local juniper where you are anymore, you're still able to recreate that flavour in the recipe.
Yeah, so juniper in Northern Ireland isn't sustainable. It's very difficult to find, actually, and it only grows on steep-sided mountains and things, because the ones that have been easily accessible have been eaten by all the Northern Irish cows and sheep. So it's very difficult to find those, and therefore, and we realised that we wouldn't be able to have local juniper in our gin. We were trying very much to be a taste of where we are, of our terroir of Northern Ireland. So I came up with a plan, which was you can get small quantities of juniper berries here. As I say, it's not sustainable, but I managed to get a juniper berry that I could analyse via the GC mass spec techniques that we were talking about before, with the help of the local university. And then what I did was, as again, mad chemistry geek that I am, I bought in every single source of sustainable juniper from around the world and carried out the chemical analysis of that, and looking at them side by side. There was two really interesting things. One was the variety of makeups of the different juniper berries from around the world was quite incredible. And juniper isn't just juniper. It really also depends on the terroir that it comes from, just like grapes do. That was really interesting to me. But the more important thing from a practical point of view was that juniper berries from Tuscany were the closest match in terms of the molecular fingerprint of the juniper. So that's where we source our juniper from, and it's as close as we can get to Northern Irish juniper.
Oh, it's fantastic! It's so good. I love it. I don't want to bring the bad side of things in, but I think it's good to have a good example of the whole process. So, for people thinking this is quite interesting and might start to look at it, did you find any particular challenges that getting things set up and getting things moving that you would be happy to share with people to stop them making a similar mistake?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of challenges in finding the right conditions for doing the microwave assisted hydrodistillation, for example. Microwaves, yes, they target water molecules, but they're also very powerful. So when you are zapping with your microwave, your particular botanicals, whether it's juniper berries like these or it's your rosemary, it can scorch the botanicals, and the last thing you want is that burnt aroma in there, because as you know, the aromas of smoke, you only need a tiny proportion of that to really taint your distillation, your product as such. So it does take a while to perfect the actual conditions to do that. And it's it's not this is an off-the-shelf bit of kit, but it does need handling and experimenting, just like any other process for distillation, when you're working out how to do it in an efficient way. So charring can be an issue that you need to very carefully control. So that's one side. Microwave distillation doesn't always work. It doesn't always work. You can't always just use fresh plants. Some of our botanicals are literally dry, and the water is no longer in them. So then you have to look at different ways of extracting out the flavors of those dry botanicals. Those are some practical considerations to be looked at. Also, the microwave distillation, although you can do it also under vacuum. Again, there are challenges there in using the right equipment to actually make that work. The advantage of doing the microwave under vacuum is the same as distilling under vacuum. You can do it at a lower temperature, so you don't destroy flavors. But if you were to do it with the standard equipment that comes with these, then you wouldn't be able to do vacuum distillation. So you need to modify your kit to do that. So that again requires a level of understanding of chemistry and equiment to do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually. Not so much I don't try this at home, but do it under a bit of guidance. You have to be
exactly that.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I just find the whole thing fascinating, so I was very keen to share it via the conference. So I should say that this is a recording which we will share in advance, and that we will be doing a live slot on the day. We'll let you know in advance so you can spare us half an hour. And then if anybody does have any questions, which I'm really hoping they will, they can come online and ask you. And yeah, lovely stuff. Just before we go, is there anything else you wanted to add? We touched on everything you wanted to share.
I guess the other thing that has really come to mind just recently, when you've got the with the energy, people's fuel bills are really coming into people's focus at the moment. And then you've got geopolitical things with Ukraine and things like that, with the looking at every distiller is going to be looking at their energy bill in the next year or two. And to actually, and it's not just the environmental impact, but the actual financial impact. When I literally, my energy bill is about the size of a small house, compared to a distillery where you're talking about hundreds of thousands in terms of energy bills. So that was something that just came to mind to me recently.
That is such a good point, because there's sort of there's talk about on average going up 50%, and there's a huge difference in that ratio, isn't there? Like when you look at a small household, when you look at a larger distillery. So that's a really, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good point.